All right, guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be actually doing some coding. We've talked about all the different things of what's inside of our Microsoft Visual Studios window in the previous videos. And so in this video here, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to start doing some programming itself. There's a couple tiny small things that I need to kind of get you guys keyed in on before we really get crazy about that. And that is, in this program, we have a part of the program is called IntelliSense. And IntelliSense is an intelligent part of the program that is trying to sense what you're doing. And so very frequently, if I go in here and I start typing something in, for example, like CON, you're going to notice that this whole entire list of things comes up, and it's trying to figure out where we're going so that you don't have to type it all in. It's a beautiful part about the the newer IDEs that are out, because it allows you to not have misspellings. And frequently I am the guy with fat fingers that just hits the wrong keys every single time I type. And so this is absolutely an amazing thing for me. All right, so I am right now inside the void start function, and I'm going to type in DUB. And as I hit DUB, you'll notice that the first option that pops up is debug. Now, to make this come alive, I'm going to hit the tab key. Now, tab, what it does is it grabs whatever's currently selected out of IntelliSense and automatically posts it into the Microsoft Visual Studios window on that specific line. Now, the next thing that I want to show you guys is not only am I debugging, but debugging is kind of like a family of different other keywords that are out there. It's kind of like the name of the chapter, but then there are all kinds of individual paragraphs and lessons inside of that of different ways that we can debug. Now, the way that we get access to all the other remaining chapters is by hitting the dot or the period on our keyboard. When I do that, it pulls up what's called the .NET framework. And the .NET framework is what we see actively right up here. So we're using system, but inside system, there is another dictionary, another glossary called collections. So I can get into system, and then with the .NET framework, which is that dot right there, I can then get access to another level inside of it. It's once again like this is the chapter, and then this is the individual section of that chapter. And then once we go from chapter to section, I can then get into the specific like paragraph or sentence or line or word. You can trace it down through the hierarchy. Every single time we hit another dot for the .NET framework, that gives us access to more things. So when I'm here on debug, as soon as I hit that dot in there, IntelliSense is going to jump back up and it's going to go, hey, is there something that you want to do inside of the debug chapter? There are other keywords in here that you can use. For example, log error, log warning, there's a log, assert, there's a log exception. And then we can literally scroll down through all of this different stuff that we can do with the keyword debug, because there's multiple things debug. It gives us functionality to be able to do. Now, the one that I want is log right here. So I don't have to, I can scroll down this list and find out which one I want. So I could click on it down here too, for example. And then once it's selected, I can then just hit tab, and it will automatically drop that word into our line of code right here in Microsoft Visual Studios. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some parentheses. Now, parentheses is basically the container, like curly brackets. It's the container where I put information into. So what I'm saying right now is I'm going to put some information inside this DeBug.Log. All right, what I'm going to put in there is I'm going to quote. So I put in one single quote. You can tell that IntelliSense jumped in there, and it's giving me I gave it the opening quote, and now it's coming in with the ending quote. So the open and the ending. All right, so Now that I've got that in there, I can type in something. I'm going to type in hello world. And then I'm just going to put an exclamation point at the end of it, and I'm going to give myself a space. All right, so what I've done is I've done a debug.log, and in the information that I'm going to debug.log is the words hello world. The parentheses, one more time, is the container of where I put my information into. And then because I'm working with words, I'm going to put up a quotation mark at the beginning, at the end, and it tells the program everything that I want to put out in my debug.log. Now, with all this stuff in here, you'll notice that I still have a red squiggly at the end. If I hover over the top of it, it'll tell me exactly what it's looking for. It's looking for a little thing that is the semicolon. And as you'll notice, as soon as I put in the semicolon, what it does from there is the red little thing goes away. So let's talk about what we just did. By the way, yes, you're going to need to punch this into your Microsoft Visual Studios as well. All right, so what is a debug.log? A debug.log is a message specifically to people that are trying to figure out what is going wrong with their program. So they'll do a little log message that's helping them debug the program or get rid of the problems in the program. And that little log message will print out in what we call the console window in Unity. And what message am I printing out to the console in Unity? Well, I'm printing out the words hello world. Now I can put all kinds of little debug.logs in all throughout my game. And by watching the console, I can see how far along in the code the program actually makes it before I get an error message. Hence the reason why it's in the debug area. We're trying to figure out where the problems are at. And it's a little log message. It's like, hey, I made it through step 1, through step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. Boop. Oh, it didn't make it to step 7. Why? Because the 7th message did not get printed out. All right. So hello world is all we're printing out right now. And we've talked about everything else on our line of code except for this little semicolon. So here's why we put a semicolon. You'll notice there realistically are hardly any other semicolons in the entire program except these guys right here. These all have a semicolon at the end of their lines. So there's one there, and there's one there. But they're realistically, there's not one here, there's not one here, here, or anywhere else. So what is that semicolon? That is a clear indicator to the computer. This is a line of code that is a command line. I want you to do what I'm putting in here. And because this is something that we're physically doing, I put a semicolon on the end of that line, basically telling you, hey, we actually want to do this line of code. It's not organization. It's not calling out a public class, or this is what we run at the start or the update. Basically, any specific line of code that physically does something, a command line, I command you to do this, needs a semicolon at the end of it. It's kind of like when you're in English class and you're writing a paper, you put a period at the end of each one of the individual sentences. Same basic concept, okay? So now what happens if we were to run this program? So I first of all, I want to go in and I'm going to save it. And when I save it, right there, what it does is it not only updates it in my computer, but then it also updates it in Unity. So let's get back into Unity. And in Unity, you'll notice right over here, because I still have my script selected, I now have that debug.log right here in this area, and it says hello world with my little space after the exclamation point. And if I were to play the game, basically this is all that's happening in the game right now. We don't see where this thing is printed out to, because we need to come right down here where the console is. And you'll see this is my debug.log and it says hello world. So now I know that it has specifically made it through all of that line of code. And because I don't have an error message, I know that the program is working. So this is a little message to the developer of the game that yes, everything is working, has gotten that far along. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause the game. As I pause the game, we're basically going to call this video closed, as I've introduced you to like 80 different concepts inside programming. We haven't done any really intense programming. We printed a message out to the screen, says, "Hello world." And in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to move that hello world script around a little bit, and we're going to see the varying different things that happen as we run our program. So I hope this video was informative. We have been bouncing back and forth between Microsoft Visual Studios and now Unity. We've done our first little bit of coding right here. We've printed a message out to the screen, and that, by the way, is pretty impressive. All right, we will see you in the very next video.